As each week passes, the housing crisis gets worse. Rents continue to spiral out of control, house prices continue to rise, real social housing need continues to grow, and the number of adults and children in emergency accommodation has hit historic highs. By any meaningful indicator, the government's housing plan is failing. And yet every day, the Taoiseach and his ministers claim rebuilding Ireland is working. Yesterday's Daft.ie rent report is further evidence that the government has lost control, and I have to say the Taoiseach and ministers' responses to the report yesterday and today show once again how out of touch they are. How can anybody looking at the evidence say rent pressure zones are working when in Dublin new rents are up 7%, in Limerick up 13%, Waterford up 16%, and Galway up a staggering 17%. Average new rents across the state are now €1,300 a month. You would need a take-home pay of €4,000 a month for that to be affordable. Here in Dublin, average new rents range from €1,700 to €2,200 a month. Again, you would need a take-home pay of between €5,500 and €7,000 a month for that to be affordable. And yet, without the slightest tinge of irony, Minister Murphy told the Dáil today that rent pressure zones are working. Worse still, he claimed yesterday that the rate of increase is the lowest since 2013. And of course, both of these statements are factually incorrect. Data from the Residential Tenancies Board and Daft.ie show that they are simply not true. But that doesn't matter to Minister Murphy, who of course couldn't even grace us with his presence here this evening. He just makes it up as he goes along and carries on regardless. And all the while tens of thousands of tenants are either strangled with excessive rents or locked out of the rental market without any hope of making a home, the Minister carries on. Daft.e's report yesterday also told us that the number of properties available to rent in the last quarter was the lowest since 2006, and of course that's simply no surprise. Since January 2017, more than 12,000 rental properties have left the market. Accidental and semi-professional landlords taking advantage of rising house prices are selling up and moving on. And what is the government doing to deal with this disorderly exit of rental properties from the market? Absolutely nothing. There is nothing in the Residential Tenancies Amendment Bill currently going through the Oireachtas that will address either excessive rents being paid today or the loss of rental properties. Now, the government knows that Sinn Féin is supporting the bill, mainly because it's doing things that we have been calling for since 2016. But unfortunately, it's like so much of this government's housing policy: too little, too late, and already overtaken by events. Fine Gael's strategy for the private rental strategy is simply in tatters. It is not working, and it is making things worse. And so it is with social housing, and so it is with affordable housing, and homelessness, and traveller accommodation, and accommodation for people with disabilities and wheelchair users. And of course, the question many people are asking, Minister, is why? And the answer is because rebuilding Ireland is based on the same failed policy consensus that has dominated government housing policy for decades. A consensus that underinvests in public housing and over-relies on the private sector to meet social and affordable housing need. Last October, when this chamber passed the Raise the Roofs housing motion, which 40 or so deputies from the opposition benches signed, we made 4 demands. Double capital investment in public housing on public land, introduce emergency measures to stem the flow of families into homelessness, take urgent action to stop the rise in rents, and hold a referendum to enshrine the right to housing in the Constitution. 8 months on, Lascian Corla, and these demands are more urgent than ever. And yet the government refuses to listen. The bill before us tonight deals with one of these Raise the Roof demands. The 35th Amendment to the Constitution, Right to a Home Bill, is very simple. It seeks to insert in the Constitution the right to adequate, appropriate, secure, safe and, crucially, affordable housing into this state's foundational law. It also seeks to place an obligation on the state to ensure the realisation of that right through its laws and policies in accordance with the principles of social justice. This proposition was endorsed by 84% of the people involved in the Constitutional Convention in 2014. It is a right that exists in many jurisdictions, including Belgium, Finland, the Netherlands, Portugal, Spain and Sweden, to name just a few. If passed, it would not guarantee every person in the state with a home, but it would provide a basic floor of protection, obliging the state to progressively realise that right. According to the Mercy Law Centre, who have published 3 separate reports on the issue, a constitutional right to housing would, and I quote, mean that legislation and policy would have to be proofed to ensure they reasonably protect that right. They go on to say that, of course, a legal right to a home is not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve all of our housing problems overnight. But it is an important tool that will ensure this government, and indeed future governments, introduce policies that promote and protect access to appropriate, secure and affordable homes. Now, based on their previous record, I have little doubt that Fine Gael will oppose this bill tonight, and no matter the script that the good minister has been given to read out in the absence of the housing minister or any of the 3 junior ministers in that department, the real reason Fine Gael will oppose this bill, if that's what you do, is because you fear a human rights-based approach to social policy. But more importantly, they fear the wrath of those in emergency accommodation, those crippled with excessive rent, those languishing on housing waiting lists, and those locked out of buying or renting a home in any possible referendum. But tonight, of course, it's Fianna Fáil who hold the balance of power. And in the past, Micheál Martin's party has voted down similar bills from Sinn Féin and other opposition parties here. But their housing spokesperson, Dáil Broin, has indicated a willingness to revisit this issue. So my appeal to Fianna Fáil tonight is work with the rest of the opposition to advance this bill. As always, Sinn Féin is open to considering amendments at committee stage if amendments are necessary. Our parties work together on student accommodation and force the government's hand to the benefit of thousands of students. We work together on increasing Part 5 obligations, again forcing the government hand and increasing the output of much-needed social housing. We work together on the property tax relief bill, yet again forcing the government's hand to the benefit of thousands of hard-pressed apartment owners. And so tonight, if Fianna Fáil are willing to support this bill, we can yet again force the government's hand to the benefit of tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people in real housing need. This Saturday, Raise the Roof will be marching on the streets of Dublin again. Thousands of people will be demanding a legal right to a home. Those people will involve the entire trade union movement, the entire student union movement, whole swathes of civil society, homeless organisations, housing associations, grassroots groups, citizens and residents, all calling on this chamber to act. And tonight we have an opportunity to do just that, to take an important step towards ending the Fine Gael housing crisis, to provide the people with an important tool to vindicate their right to appropriate, secure and affordable homes. And indeed, even if there are deputies in this chamber who don't support a constitutional right to housing, surely they believe the people should get to have their say on such an important matter. So deputies, let's do the right thing. Let's pass the 35th Amendment to the Constitution Bill. Let's provide a legal, constitutional right to a home. And then let's get out on the streets on Saturday and raise the roof, demanding real solutions to our housing emergency. Thank you, Last Count Corley.